Awesome. Okay, so we're here to talk about OpenScholar's move to HTTPS. And then at the very end, we'll talk a little bit about group services in OpenScholar. We were actually going to talk a little bit more about group services, but there's been a little delay in the development. So maybe in the fall we'll have another session to go into more detail about that. But the move to HTTPS was kind of a big deal for OpenScholar. Before I get into that, let me just talk about getting help. Harvard Web Publishing has a community forum, a documentation website, roadmap that gives you a look into all of our releases. We're at a 3 to 4 week cycle. OpenScholar has new features that come out in bug fixes. And then we have platform trainings. Bree's the trainer, and then in July, Kate will be taking over as the trainer. So just want to tell you about that. Okay, so here's what happened. So we actually tried this a while ago, and there were some issues, so we had to roll it back a couple months ago. Then we identified all the issues, and we sent out a notification on April 20th, letting people know, the Harvard community, that we were going to roll out this switch to HTTPS. And then on May 1st, we actually went and did it. And there was a few issues that we encountered, but we were able to overcome them. The development team had a script to update some of the widgets, and Kate will talk about that. But in the beginning of this presentation, I just want to introduce you to HTTPS and why it's important that we did this. Okay. So when you go to a website, sometimes you'll see at the very beginning HTTP://. That's the protocol, and you don't really have to pay attention to it too much. It usually just takes care of itself if you type the URL in. HTTPS is a different way to get a web page. It's for your browser to show a web page. It's a secure way. There's several different, the acronym is several different ways to say it. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure. I've heard over TLS for secure, and then I've heard over SSL. It all means the same thing. It's basically just HTTPS. It's the protocol, a secure protocol over the internet. So HTTPS provides a couple of benefits. When you go to a web page, it verifies that the website you're going to is legitimate, and it uses a certificate to do that. And it also provides an encrypted connection. So if somebody were to intercept the connection, they wouldn't be able to see the information. And in the past, this has typically been used in e-commerce. When you're putting in your credit card information, there was obviously a need to secure that, or social security number. But now the web is really moving towards everything being secure. So the first part, the identity piece, that's handled by a certificate. It doesn't have to be SSL. SSL is kind of the old protocol, but a certificate is issued by a third-party company, such as VeriSign, Amazon. They all issue these certificates, and it's like filling out an application, and they check out who owns the domain, and they make sure that you're the company that really owns the site. So they kind of verify who you are and that the site is legitimate. It also gets involved in the encryption process. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And there's different types of certificates. There's the basic ones that just check the domain, the ones that check the domain in the organization, and then there's extended validation where it's like, not to the level of getting a security clearance, but they do their due diligence and make sure you are who you say you are, and that the website is legitimate. And there's different types. You can have a single domain or a multi-domain, or a bunch of subdomains in a single certificate. So it kind of works like this. So I've kind of ordered these. So when you connect from your browser on your laptop to the web server, you type in the URL, it makes a request for the web page. If it's HTTPS, it's first going to check to see if the certificate exists and that it's valid. And then if it is, the web server is going to handle it from there, and then send along the HTML for the web page in a secure format. So that's what the certificate does. Very, very high level. There's a lot more to it than this, obviously. So your browser, you can actually take a look at the certificate in your browser. In the developer tools, there's a way to take a look at it. Not that you'd want to do it, but it gives you information on who the certificate authority is. For example, OpenScholar is using certificate authority is called in common. So once your browser says it's all good, then the transaction occurs. So how's your browser know that it's all good? It actually has its own database. This is from Firefox. It keeps a list of all of its certificates. You can, if you really want, if there's a problem, you can edit it on the browser side, and it just kind of keeps a list of all the companies out there that are that issue certificates, certificate authority companies. Okay. So if I go to any website, I go to this website. I just want to show you a live demo. And under security, you can actually, not that you'd ever want to do this, but it could be a case. You can take a look at the details if there's ever a problem. Now, most people would never do this, but maybe developers would if you had to troubleshoot a problem. But certificates are no secret in terms of who's issued them. Let's open Firefox. Just to show you Firefox in its settings, when it checks on its side, if you go to Advanced, it'll this is that list of certificate authority companies that it has, and it has some information on them to make sure that the company is legit. So this kind of checks and balances going on from both sides. All right. And we'll go. And then I'll show this site. Radiolab.org. So this site, radiolab.org, they don't have a certificate. And if I were to go to just http://radiolab.org, everything would be fine. There we go. But as you can see, if I go to HTTPS, then what happened was the browser checked the server, looked to see if there was a certificate. There was none there, and then the browser is going to tell you that there was a problem. Connection is not private. So that's what the browser does. It kind of protects you. Any questions about that piece of it? All right. So it's kind of like, first piece was the identity piece, or the certificate, and the second piece is the secure connection, how that works. So I'm using this example, this form. Let's pretend there's this form on my website, and it's asking you up here in the right-hand corner, what's your name? So really, when you go to the site, it'll load the form on your browser, on your laptop. You'll type in your name, and that information will get sent back to the server. So as you can see with HTTP, anybody intercepting this transaction can see exactly what you typed in. Now your name, who cares if somebody knows in general, but if that was your credit card, social security, any other personal information, you wouldn't want that to be available. So here's the same transaction over HTTPS. And you see what it does, it actually sends a bunch of scrambled characters over the internet. So if somebody were to see it, it wouldn't make any sense. So not to get too in-depth, but the way it does this is kind of uses some math magic, and I'm not a cryptology expert. But before this, we call it the session, this two-way encryption begins, the server and the client, the laptop, agree, the browser agree on a method to communicate. And then it uses a public key and a private key to encode and decode the information. So the information is sent using the public key to get encoded, right? Turn the actual words into the scrambled characters. That gets sent out across the internet. Anybody can get it. Anybody can encode. But the decoding part is just shared between party A and party B. And so this is really the kind of the mathematics behind it, is that this just kind of illustrates. I have this little burglar here. This burglar only has the public key, so they have no idea how to decode this, so that it's completely useless. It's kind of in a nutshell how it works. So if you don't know a lot about private and public key encryption, there's a great YouTube video that I put on here, and I'll put this slideshow on ABCD-OS. And it kind of uses colors to make it clear on what's happening. So it's really kind of, it makes it easy to understand, because it is quite complex. So with that being said, OpenScholar is essentially a public-facing tool. So it allows up to level 2 security information to live on the platform. So that's not very, level 2 is not extremely confidential. These are the kind of examples that it allows. It does allow level 1 and public information, obviously. So you might say that, hey, we're not storing any confidential information on OpenScholar. Why do we bother with this encryption? Oh, this is my next sentence. So here's why. Here's a few things. So on August 6, 2014, Google announced that HTTPS websites would be prioritized in its search results, which means that any sites not using it are going to get knocked down on the page. So that's kind of a good reason. Why do you think Google would want to prioritize HTTPS? Any ideas? Yeah.
Complaints from viewers that searching on some issues that website
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Junk, exactly. So their product, one of their many products, is their Google search engine, their search results. So they want that to be legit. That's their product. That's one of the big reasons that they would prioritize it. So they're powerful enough where they make an announcement that kind of changes everything. Although it was headed in this direction anyway. But so your browsers are sort of catching on to this, and they have a status now that if everything is great, it'll have a nice secure icon and logo and to the left of where you enter the URL. And it gives you some information. It gives you a really nice message when it's a secure connection, and a kind of daunting message when it's not. So I put on here just more reference. There's some security icons that you'll see in the browser now. You can read these status explanations on Chrome. And then mixed content warning. Your browser tries to warn you if some of the page is encrypted, but some of it is from another source that's not encrypted. So it's just trying to look out for you.
That would be like ads and stuff embedded into.
Yeah. Yeah, anything embedded. Let's say you have a video, that's hosted somewhere and it's embedded into the content area of the page. Even though the entire web page is HTTPS, that video content is not. So anything that's embedded, it'll give you a mixed content warning.
So if you're embedding stuff with the scholars, then that's Reddit and stuff. Like if you're embedding with stuff with
Yeah. Kate will get into that right after me, but it has to be HTTPS. Or it won't even allow you to do HTTP anymore. But if it happens automatically, the browser will send a warning about this. So I just listed some of the main reasons: security, integrity, privacy. We didn't talk about that. I was going to talk about ISPs being able to sell your browsing information. This makes it a little more difficult for them. PageRank from Google, and browser warnings. Browsers are becoming more active in letting you know. So here's a great reference on why right here. Embedding content, I'm going to let Kate talk about that. Other ways it affects your site, it'll auto-direct from HTTP to HTTPS. So the next line, refer links will be preserved. If somebody has a link to your site on their site and it's HTTP, it'll be fine. It'll just redirect. So you don't have to worry about anything like that. What about the www version? That'll be fine too. That'll redirect. What to type in the browser? Usually just omit that. If you're going to your OpenScholar site, just omit it and let everything take care of itself. And it'll automatically redirect to HTTPS. With that, I bring up Kate.
All right, so a quick refresher on how to embed content. Go to the Embed Media browser in the WYSIWYG, and then you go to the Embed from Web tab, and you just paste in the iframe, or you can paste in the URL directly. And the Embed Media widget works the same way, although I tend to prefer embedding it straight into the content. Whether it's in an iframe, whether it's in a script tag, whether it's just the URL, anything referencing externally has to have that S in there. It's HTTPS only. Otherwise, it will give you a warning, which I'm about to show you, which is a nice fail-safe. Because usually when I'm just copying and pasting something from the web, I don't even think about whether there's an extra S in there, you know. So it will give you a warning, and you'll just have to add in that S pretty much. Are you sending? No? Yeah, can't go anywhere else. Well, we'll just do an embed media widget. Okay. Happening. I don't know. So just go.
I don't think it's I'm defending the site.
Oh, I need to add you as a member for this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to grab some embed code over here. Usually under share, you can grab the iframe, which is what I'm in the habit of doing. You can also just grab and paste the URL. The embed media, embed from web, and let's just say I copied something that was HTTP. Submit, and it's not going to let you do that. So it's just something to be cognizant about if you're having issues. The other thing I want to point out is this list of whitelisted domains. That can be an issue if it's not on that list, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. But with HTTPS, it's fine, because this is a fail-safe, so we don't get those mixed content warnings. And it shows up eventually. A little bit off topic for the site. So this is another example of a type of warning you can get. This is in the browser console, and you can see it using the developer tools. So this isn't right in your face exactly. It's not going. You have to search for it a little bit, but it's yet another tool that Chrome is using to steer people away from having unsecure content on their site. And so this particular example brought up. Question was brought up about it when you can have automatically mixed content. So there was a community topic about this site was embedding tweets from Twitter, and some of the images embedding were HTTP instead of HTTPS. So I think that's something that our developers are working on right now. But that's something that can happen when these HTTP URLs are coming in automatically. This is something that we did as HWP to kind of correct the different embeds that could have HTTP content on there. We went in and just told all the embedded media on there to use a protocol relative URL, and that's just the / right here. And what that does, that lead-in really just has them follow the protocol of the page. So whether it's HTTPS, it resolves on its own. Going forward, that's not really best practices. I think there's a little bit of issues with performance there, and it's just always more secure and more safe to explicitly have HTTPS in the URL. But if you come across that was done via the script that we run to solve some of these issues that we were having. Another thing that we did when we made the switch to HTTPS, for the custom themes that Harvard Web Publishing built, we basically went in and we switched to HTTPS, any URL referencing Google Fonts, or it could be images, other media, and made those secure. If you have a custom theme of your own, that's something that you're going to have to take care of, and hopefully you have a copy on your computer, and basically just add in the S for any external references. If you don't, there's a link here to the starter kit for custom themes for OpenScholar if you have one of those yourself, and you can kind of just follow the file structure and recreate what you had up there before. There's more information about that on GitHub if anybody has that specific issue. So embedding content, any of these embedly providers work really well with OpenScholar. That's how OpenScholar was designed, was to work with the main provider. Anything in embedly that you're probably going to want to embed will be up there. So YouTube, Vimeo, mostly I embed videos. That's the kind of content that I'm looking to embed. And another great thing is I just showed you, I embedded the whole iframe there. You can just put in the URL and it'll pull in the whole content, which is really awesome and even a better user experience. But I'm just in the habit of putting in the whole iframe. Another thing to keep in mind is the trusted domains list, which was right under the embed media widget. So if something is not whitelisted by us, you could have trouble embedding it as well. There are a few that do not support HTTPS yet, and so you're going to have to work around that for the moment. Anything that's not on the whitelist, you can request via community. So these are the current links that, or references that basically broke when we switched to HTTPS, because even though these are whitelisted, they don't support HTTPS yet. And so hopefully with the movement of the web, more and more sites are going to this and everything's going to be more secure. So at this point, you can't embed services from these sites. You have to directly link out to them. And real quickly, so we have implemented the switch for all harvard.edu domains. We still have yet to get to the .org and .coms. It's a bit of a manual process on our development team side, so they're working on it. We have to secure those certificates. But we've made tremendous progress so far, and it's really good that we've made the switch now, not only because Google is telling us that we have to, but because it's the right thing to do to just add that extra layer of security. So a little bit into group services.
Okay, switching gears, group services. So we just want to preview what it is. This is something totally different than HTTPS. The IAM group here at Harvard, Identity and Access Management, is creating a new system that allows programs or applications to pull in groups. And the way this is going to be used is for permissioning on various applications, such as Canvas, OpenScholar, and Confluence Wiki are kind of the three within our domain, within academic technologies, that are going to try this. So IAM is coming out with a release on its side of the group services feature in June. So then OpenScholar will begin to test at that point with the latest code. And why is it being introduced? In general, there's a need for more granular user permissions right now. In terms of restricting a site with Harvard key, it's pretty much anyone with a Harvard key can access the site. That's one restriction. And sometimes people need, if they're building sort of a departmental intranet, for example, they might not want the entire Harvard community, every 1,000 people, be able to see it. So we've heard a lot of people request over the years that they need more granular permissioning for their sites. And a lot of this has come from iSites. We're decommissioning iSites August 1st, I believe. That the date keeps changing, that's why I stumbled a bit.
It's not changing. We're already having the decommission
Oh yeah? Yeah.
that is planned. We're down to 2%.
Awesome, awesome. So all right, so a lot of the iSites had this really refined permission set, and that was a proprietary thing that the developers built. So it wasn't really an API, something meant to share across different systems. So I talked to our developer, our lead developer, and she gave me the message that this is going to probably change, but this gives you some clue into the UI of what it could be similar to this. You might not use tabs, but you can reference different groups in the LDAP directory. Theoretically, over time, we think you'll be able to create custom groups like you can in iSites, person by person. So you would select your groups, and these would sort of fold into a permission set for a site. So this is exciting. This is going to be a cool feature. Like I said, this still doesn't mean that OpenScholar is going to allow higher than level 2, even though we're kind of locking down access. It's still going to be level 2 as far as I know. So that's going to be Hooper. So hopefully in September, when we have our first meeting, we can have somebody come in and really take you through this feature and look at it in OpenScholar. So that would be pretty cool. So any questions?